Y'all.
Joining us now also in the studio, Lee Yancy from the Mississippi House of Representatives, District 74. That's a big chunk of Rankin County. Morning, Lee.
Good morning.
So
it's good to be here.
Good to have you. Like that shirt you got on, where'd you get that?
I got this when I was hanging out with you one day, I think.
The rain got us. We didn't get to finish the tournament.
Yeah.
Play a little golf.
You know, it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mississippi, it's either burning up or it's raining.
Now we got a hurricane coming our way.
Now we have a hurricane.
Oh, shoot. Well, so in the midst of all the other stuff going on in the country and in Mississippi, we've got, of course, this lingering issue of a medical marijuana program, and you've had some involvement in that on the House side. Tell us what you've been doing and give us an update there.
So probably about a little month and a half ago, 2 months ago, the Speaker asked me to put together a bill that would represent maybe where the House was coming from. And let me go ahead and say in advance, this is not, what I'm doing is not the House position. This is the Yancy position. And until the House sees it and House votes on it, we don't have a House position. So I want to make that clear to all the legislators who may be listening. I am offering a suggestion to them, and I hope to be meeting with them in the very near future, possibly next week, to talk about where we are. But we began putting together a medical marijuana bill based on the fact that Initiative 65 passed last November, and you can argue about the number of people who voted to pass that, whether it's Commissioner Gibson's 57.85% or it's the 74%. It was a significant majority of Mississippians who said that they wanted a medical marijuana program. And then we had the Supreme Court who threw it out on a technicality, and so thus it falls into the hands of the legislature once again to try and do something about this. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we are. To suggest that that marijuana is not in our state right now would be completely naive. It's been estimated that it's a $700 million to a $1 billion industry in our state right now.
Wow. That's
not being taxed or regulated or it's completely illegal, but it's going on and it's here. And so I've been working with Chairman Kevin Blackwell in the Senate on the bill. We had two bills originally, a House bill that I was working on and a Senate bill that he was working on. And then probably a month ago or so, I was basically getting a lot of the things that I thought should be in the bill worked into his bill and making a few minor changes here and there. And Senator Blackwell's been working on this bill for a long, long time. Not necessarily this bill, but on this issue for a long time. And he has done the lion's share of the work, and I want to give him credit where credit is due. And I was just kind of looking over his shoulder saying, don't do this, do that. Will you take this out? Well, what about that? And sometimes he would and sometimes he wouldn't.
Sure.
But we have a great working relationship, and we are continuing to make progress on this bill. There have been minor differences in our opinions, and there have been some things that have been disputed between one side and the other. But now I think we are finally to the point of being ready to, print up a final copy to be presented to the House. Would probably present that to the Republican caucus first, and have all of their questions answered, and then I guess the Senate would do the same on their side, whatever their protocol is. And if we can get back together and all be on the same sheet of music, we would let the governor know that we're ready to have a special session whenever he was willing to call one, if he's willing to call one.
How would you handicap that possibility at this point?
I think it's happening.
Okay.
I think it's happening. I think we're on the same page soon, assuming that the rest of the members, we can satisfy their questions possibly next week. I think that, we need to have a special session before October 1st or what's the point? We're in the fourth quarter of the year anyway, and we're all coming back in January. And I would love to get this off the table because we have so much before us in January that's coming. And it would be really good if this were not lost in all of that or used as leverage in the midst of a general session. And this was kind of a standalone. I think we need to take this off the table.
So one item that has been somewhat controversial is how this would be administered from a government perspective, which agency would be charged with that. I believe Initiative 65 had called for the Department of Health, essentially overseeing the medical marijuana program in the state. Where do you guys stand on that now? What is it looking like now?
So the Department of Health had done a great work in putting together regulations for Initiative 65 and had it ready to go. And Dr. Dobbs has been busy of late, and we had thought that it would be good to spread some of the responsibilities around to different agencies to handle things that were maybe more in line with what their departments and commissions did. Mm-hmm. And so, they're in this version of the bill that exists. There is a portion that's the Department of Health continues to regulate. There's a portion the Department of Revenue regulates, and there's a portion that the Department of Agriculture and Commerce would regulate. And so, it's, to me, it doesn't matter who regulates it as long as they do a good job of it. I understand Commissioner Gibson wants nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I understand where he's coming from. I really do. We have a similar background. But, that's something that the Senate is kind of insisting on at this point, and I'm going to let them fight it out. Whether or not the Agricultural Department is in there or not in there is yet to be determined. I believe the Department of Health is ready to take it on should they have that opportunity completely. But you would think that there are some things in place in all of these places that make sense as to why they would be the ones to regulate it.
Yeah, and the 65 lease as drafted, pure 65, actually had the fees paid on at the retail, and some fees paid also, I guess, to be authorized to be involved in the production, right from growing all the way through distribution. All the money essentially produced would go to the Department of Health to cover the cost of administering the program. That's the original.
Right,
concept.
And one of the pillars of 65 was they wanted it to be a self-sustaining program, right. and we certainly would like for it to be a self-sustaining program as well. Of course, we have the fees and the funds coming to the general fund, and through the appropriations process, we'll make sure the Department of Health has whatever they need to handle the program. Dr. Dobbs has given us an estimate of what he thinks it would cost the first year and what he thinks it would cost in subsequent years. So, we're prepared for the program to sustain itself and also to, add to the general fund to help with our highways and our bridges and all the other things.
So there's some expectation, I don't know if you guys have actually modeled this, that the cost associated with operating the program that would go to the agencies charged with regulating it from A to Z, that there would be excess collections as well in the way of taxes, fees, et cetera, that would go to the general fund, and you guys would appropriate as you do. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And, of course, the general fund is education, Medicaid, corrections, and almost all the rest of debt service, almost all the rest of government, except highways and bridges, which is through the State Highway Fund, which is primarily funded with taxes on gas.
So that's right. So money goes to the general fund would go. You look at our budget, you see how it's broken down, and you see who gets the biggest slices of the pie, and of course they get the lion's share of the money.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys are working together, you and the Senator Blackwell, and interesting to hear that you think you're close.
I think we're close.
Well, I think that's good news for those that support getting something done, which is, as you indicated, the majority of the state, certainly from the vote.
And we certainly, if there's going to be drugs out there, we certainly want it to be regulated.
Yeah.
We want it to be tested. We want people to know they're getting a product that's not going to kill them, that's laced with fentanyl or
Sure.
other contaminants. And so that's part of the process. And
Okay. You want to hang around?
Sure.
All right. We'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk about some other stuff besides medical marijuana. You got a session coming up here pretty soon. We'll be right back. Stay with us. That's a great tune.
I'm really disappointed. I was hoping to hear some Journey.
We have that.
And we haven't had any Journey songs since I've been here today.
Rhino can accommodate, but you probably didn't hear the intro, because the intro for the show at the top of the hour has got 2 Journey songs, Separate Ways. I can't remember the name of the other one. It doesn't rank amongst my favorite Journey songs. The second one, I got to talk to Will about that. We got to change that. I'm wanting Wheel in the Sky. I think that'd be a great intro song. So.
Wheel in the Sky keeps on burning.
There you go, and it does, doesn't it? Rhino, help us out on that. Representative Yancy has made a request here on the All Hit Request line. We intend to accommodate. All right, so. He got this medical marijuana thing, and it is a controversial matter. And I know that we can dig into the math of the results of the balloting. Senator Sparks, Daniel Sparks, from up there in Appalachia, as I like to describe him, he was in the studio and brought me spreadsheets. This was weeks ago. And he's right in that when you look at the data, in the actual vote tabulations, 74% of those who voted did not support 65, which is what people that are part of this We Are 74 group state and maintain.
Well, a lot of people who voted no voted for 65A.
Correct.
In case 65 passed.
But the point is, a lot of people who voted in the election didn't vote at all on medical marijuana.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Okay. So most people did vote for a medical marijuana program. I think that's 74% of those who voted.
Sure. For
yes or no. But that's less than the total number of who voted in the election. We actually had more people vote, according to Secretary of State Watson. If he's listening, he can correct me if I misstate this. I believe I'm right. More people voted for the flag than did the president. How about that?
Wow. Yeah.
So just because you vote for the top item, you don't have to vote for everything else. Mm-hmm. And so and everything's based on the top item on the ballot. And, of course, the top item was the president.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Gerard, the way I look at this, a majority of people voted for it.
Yes.
And you're looking at an industry that has almost $1 billion of sales in our state right now illegally. So what we'd be doing by regulating this, by putting it in statute, number one, we wouldn't have it in the Constitution.
Right.
So we can tweak it every year as we need to, because I can assure you we're not going to put out the very best bill the first try. Yep. And there are going to be changes we have to make. So we can get it out of the Constitution, put it in statute. Number two, we can try to keep the black market out and try to undercut them. Number three, we have a product that we can test that doesn't have contaminants in it, insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, a product that doesn't have other drugs in it, fentanyl that kill people. At least this way, we can have qualifying patients go before a medical practitioner who would certify that they have one of X number of debilitating conditions. That physician would then certify that they are eligible for a medical marijuana card that would be issued by the Department of Health, at which time that person would take it to the dispensary to get their medicine. And when I say medicine, I know some people are cringing, but there are medicines that have been approved by the FDA that contain THC, that contain CBD. They're already there. They've already been tested. And we can talk about Marinol. We can talk about Epidiolex. Epidiolex is a drug that reduces seizures in people with epilepsy, particularly children. Marinol is a drug that people who have cancer, who are wasting away, have cacoxony. They are losing weight. They can't eat anything. They don't have any appetite. Marinol is a drug that helps increase their appetite and reduces pain. Mm-hmm. And every one of these conditions I have studied that's in the bill, and I have looked at the way that it helps that condition and have not taken this lightly. And while cannabis, marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, somehow cocaine is Schedule II. I don't know why.
I didn't know that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe cocaine had a better lobbyist. I don't know. But I do believe that they're going to discover more and more medical uses through the FDA clinical trials and process. A lot of these are going on right now, and they're going on in other countries. There are products that are available in other countries that aren't available here yet, but I think they will be.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been in any kind of pain because of one of these illnesses or diseases, if you've had a loved one who suffered, if there was a way for them to not have to get hooked on opioids, to not suffer the indignity of constipation as a result of opioids, to have incessant nausea and vomiting and seizures, you would have to almost be a person without any compassion at all to say, I wouldn't let anyone try this just because I don't like it.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to put a program in place. Yesterday I was at the Coy Waller Research Center at Ole Miss. I met with the folks at the Research Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences. These are folks who've been testing and researching cannabis since 1968, the year I was born. They have been studying it. They've been providing whatever the federal government wants them to study, growing it, researching it. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday was the possibility of them getting some of the data that comes from these dispensaries as far as what medical conditions used, what particular products, and what was the outcome of that. And that kind of data could be beneficial, and it would make Mississippi the first state in the union to really study how this drug works on these particular illnesses. And I think Mississippi would be a leader across the country in providing that research, and Ole Miss is already doing it in a sense. And so we're looking at making that part of the bill as well. So I think a lot of scientific clinical studies can come out of this program. I think a lot of people will be helped. Will there be abuse? Certainly. There's abuse in everything. There are people who abuse beer. There are people who abuse prescription drugs, who abuse hard liquor. There are people who abuse everything. Okay, and so we're putting safeguards in the bill to try and make sure that those who do abuse it are punished. This is not a free pass to just go use marijuana. Not just anybody can get it. It's going to be a difficult process, but we are trying to make it available to those whose physicians think this would be a viable option to treat whatever debilitating illness that they have. Many of these are terminal. Many of these people are near having end-of-life issues. Many of these are trying to get off of opioids. So, I feel like that we're doing the right thing by trying to put this legislation into action with all of these safeguards in place.
Commissioner Andy Gibson, Ag Commissioner, he was on with Paul Gallo this morning, and he expressed his concerns about his agency possibly being involved in regulatory issues and regulating, I guess, some aspect of the program. And what he said was that he felt like essentially we're breaking federal law just in transporting seed into the state from out of state. It has to come from somewhere to start growing other plants, of course. Well, and he expressed his concerns about that. My question is, how are the other 36 states that have authorized the medical marijuana program, how are they dealing with this?
Well, the other 36 states plus the District of Columbia, we would be the 38th state to do it in a sense. There are those who talk about immaculate conception, how if you pass the law, then suddenly it just appears out of nowhere. We know that's not how it happens, but you would be naive to think that there isn't marijuana in Mississippi right now. There are seeds in Mississippi right now. There are seeds up at Ole Miss that are legal seeds. So they've been testing it for over 50 years. So, the marijuana's already here. It's here. Yeah. It doesn't have to travel across the state line.
Hang around. You can?
Sure.
We got other stuff to talk about. Whoop. We got a guest. Oh, we do? We have a new guest coming on. Okay. We're going to talk about some weather. All right. Well, Lee, appreciate you coming in, man. Always a pleasure.
Glad to